the blessings that they have with their animals reach something that they've never experienced sometimes with humans. And so there can be a lot of confusion as, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was going to grieve this hard, or I've never experienced this type of grief before. And I simply just walk alongside them and let them know that that relationship was very meaningful and significant. And all of the blessings that they experienced, their love story never dies. It's how we hold it in our heart and in our mind. If we want to label it as painful and keep that label forever,
Mhm.
it doesn't it doesn't serve us well. But if we want to label it painful for a while and be flexible, to God's grace and mercy and, all of the restoration that he has for us, then
Mhm.
then they can stay in that mode of looking at the blessings and being excited to see them in heaven again.
Yeah.
For those that are faith-based.
Thank you for stopping by my podcast, Finding God in Our Pain. Welcome. Hi, I'm your host, Sherry Pilkington. In this podcast, you'll hear firsthand stories of how the God of the Holy Bible meets real people in their real pain. We look at the good God we profess through the lens of pain and suffering. I'm processing the most painful season of my life after unexpectedly losing Larry, my husband of 32 years. In my journey, I've discovered that there are many types of deaths. Maybe you've asked God, how could you let this happen? Why me? Where are you, God? Do you even care? What am I supposed to do with my life now? Here at Finding God in Our Pain, we don't shy away from the tough questions. I ask them to my guests. I share what I've experienced. We give real examples of how God shows up in the darkest, most painful situations in life. May the stories that you hear and the advice you receive encourage you to engage the heart of God about your painful places or memories or experiences or even your unmet expectations. Lean in close to God's heart because he speaks beautiful things in the dark. My guest, Rachel Shirley, is a certified professional coach and pet loss grief companion. And she's here today to talk about her book, Pet Loss and Divine Healing, a compassionate guide for navigating your devastating loss. When Rachel and I were connected up, I was so excited to learn that there is true support for those who are grieving the loss of a beloved pet. I love my pets, but I am also one who tries to just push through my grief, possibly because I've bought into society's value system with regard to grading the level of importance when it comes to death. And I don't really know why, but I try hard to push through the death of my pets. I just feel like that's a deep grief that I don't want to get into. Will I ever get out of it? And every time I've lost a pet, I am utterly heartbroken, but I never take the time to grieve them like I need to. And with each passing pet loss, my grief seems to get more difficult and more difficult. A year ago, March 2023, I had my 13-year-old little 5-pound Yorkiepoo put down, and it broke my heart so much so that I kept feeling like I wanted to cry the whole time I was talking to Rachel. And even now, tears are threatening to start, but as usual, I'm holding them back as I do this intro. And something that is in the distance for me is that I currently have 2 senior dogs who are 11 years old and a cat who's 7 years old. And bless your fur, we never get them as long as we want them. So it is inevitable that I will have to lay them to rest sometime in the near future. And the thought of that causes me to struggle with whether or not I'll get any more animals. I just don't think my heart can take it. So when I learned there's grief support, I knew I wanted to share this with you, my listeners. Rachel is someone who cares about your beloved fur baby, and she can help you navigate this painful season. As soon as Rachel starts talking, you'll be able to tell that she is comforting and kind, 2 wonderful traits that let you know you can trust her with your pain and that she's genuinely there to help heal your broken heart. She knows your pain firsthand, too, because she lost her beloved fur baby, Winston. Rachel and I delve into all the aspects of her book, which, in my opinion, covers the full scope of what someone will go through when they lose a pet. I can't think of a topic in her book that she left out, right down to the last chapter, where it addresses the loss of various professions that either care for dogs, like a veterinarian, as well as dogs who serve their community, both professionally and personally, to include military, police, support animals. But she didn't stop there. She brings these additional topics to the table. What if you have to euthanize a pet due to financial or behavioral issues? A pet who died of a tragic accident. She addresses people who do not have real children, flesh children, as she calls them. And she wraps up her book by sharing firsthand stories from her clients. And some of the topics that Rachel and I talked about were: how does one process grief for a pet? The importance of a bond between a human and pet. Is there a right way or a wrong way to grieve a pet? Honoring your precious fur baby with a memorial or a tradition. And we didn't sidestep the debate about, do pets go to heaven? At one point, Rachel and I talk about our pets being a gift from God and how much they embody his spirit of unconditional love and joy and tangible affection. And we refer to God revealing himself through our pets. And I even said that his spirit shows up in animals. But to be clear, I'm not saying that God is a dog or a specific animal. I'm saying that God uses our pets and any animal he wants to speak to us, like Baleem's donkey. And I'm not sure I'm saying his name right, but in the book of Numbers, chapter 22, verses 21 through 39, not only did the donkey save Baleem's life because God reveals himself to the donkey, but God also opens the donkey's mouth and he spoke truth and common sense to Baleem. So when or if you hear me say that God is like a dog or a cat, I'm not saying he is an animal or is a dog or is a cat, but that he uses his creation to reveal his nature and give tangible ways that we can experience his character. And if you're grieving the loss of a precious pet, I hope that what Rachel shares with you today will strengthen your heart for the grief journey, because you're not alone. And let's get into this most encouraging conversation. And you can find all the links in the show notes. Rachel, thank you for agreeing to this conversation, because I personally think that pet death is not talked about enough. It's almost as if it's not taken seriously. And yet, when we lose a beloved pet, it's devastating. I haven't even healed
Mhm.
from losing my little guy Zeke a year ago, this past March of 2023, which is just more proof that this topic needs to become a common conversation. So, welcome to the show. And again, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you, and my heart is full for this conversation. Most definitely.
It's going to be good. Our
Yeah.
conversation is structured around your book, Pet Loss and Divine Healing, a compassionate guide for navigating your devastating loss. Share with us a little bit about how you became a pet loss grief coach.
Yes, it's an interesting story because I've been a certified coach since 2006, and God has had me in different life situations and jobs using coaching as some type of aspect. And it's just one of my gifts I'm grateful for. And I was actually in the leadership industry. And when COVID hit in 2020, I decided to quit. I had been praying for a couple of years, actually, for God to shift me into doing some work that, even though leadership and all of that is meaningful, I was looking for something a little bit deeper to walk with people alongside their pain. And so when I resigned, I took some time to decompress and kind of detox, right? Just from the hustle and bustle and the go and the demands and pressure and everything. And I really became grounded. And I thought, there's got to be something that I can do that's with animals. And my husband and I, we looked at each other and thought, wonder if there's anything with pets and coaching. Googled it, pet loss coaching, it's a thing. And I said, all right, I'm in. So yeah, so I found the guru of it and I asked her if she would mentor me. She said yes. And she has a certification, took that, and the rest is history. So I've been doing it full time ever since then. And I would say it's really a joy to come alongside people in their pain. I've also done coaching in recovery. So I think God has just equipped me to do that.
God
Yeah.
always uses everything like wherever we go, whatever we do, he takes all of that and moves us into the next chapter, moves us into
Yeah.
the next chapter, and he builds on it every time. Nothing's
Right.
ever wasted with him. Wasn't there a
Right.
bit of a catalyst though for you to
Mhm.
consider pet loss?
Mhm.
as you're coaching?
You know, 6 months prior to COVID, we lost Winston, one of our beloved boxers. And that was a pretty tough grieving time. He was like a kid to us. I don't have any skin children, as I say, any human children, but our dogs are our babies. My husband has a beautiful daughter in her 20s, but he and we don't have children together. So our animals are. And so definitely when Winston passed, and it was pretty sudden, really took time to evaluate, wow, this is a heavy, heavy grief. And something maybe I can roll up my sleeves and do something, once I heal my heart as well. So yeah. Yeah.
Did you take the time to grieve at that time, or did you find the value in allowing yourself to grieve as you begin to look at like pet grief, loss, and coaching?
Mhm. So I grieved right away and just went through the grieving process, and it was not on my radar at all until maybe 1 or 2 months after COVID hit, and I really became grounded and relaxed. But I mean, it was just this beautiful moment that my grieving took when I was really stressed at work. And I say a beautiful moment because I was able to lean into God and to say, you know what, this pain stuff, I can handle it. And other people need somebody like me that can walk alongside them.
Yeah.
I think the hurts ministry, I think there's people that really want to do it, but kind of scared to do it. And I think I was scared too. And I said, I'm going for it. Yeah.
That's when you stepped into your passion, I believe, part of what you had already built on, and then your love for your animals,
Yes.
and combine those two. And I think that's a very deep and rewarding passion, I would think. I've
Yeah.
heard, I've heard someone say, people say, maybe I've seen a quote along the lines of, cherish those you love because one day God will take them home, or God will
Hmm.
take them back. And
Yeah.
that's true with pets too. And sadly, we get a very limited number of years with our pets, and
Yeah.
at the risk of committing anything close to sacrilege. But God knows my heart on this because I've talked to Him about this many times. But I believe that God reveals Himself through our pets, and the fact
Yeah.
that God spelled backward as dog. I mean, that's just more food for thought, in my opinion. And I
Hmm.
believe that God gave us pets as a gift to encourage us, and it's a way His Spirit shows up and loves on us in a tangible way. What's your take on that?
Absolutely, 100%. You and I are two peas in a pod. Most definitely. I really believe that, our sweet ones, our animals, they are everything that we wished humans were, with unconditional love, forgiveness, that selflessness. Well, sometimes they could be selfish when they want their cookies, but we all can, right? But the non-judgmental, the loyalty, all of it. And that's what God is,
Yeah.
and I think that they're just God in fur or feathers or, whatever our sweet ones are. I really believe that those relationships are deep and our pets are absolutely amazing. And I do have a theory on the fact that he has here for a shorter time. My theory on that, because I've wrestled with him with this for a while, but is that we're here to love more.
Mm.
And, having that capacity to be able to grieve and hold the same energy of welcoming a new one into our home and our heart
Mm.
when the time is right for us individually is priceless, because we're helping another creature of God's, and we're helping ourselves because we're designed to nurture.
Yeah.
And I believe that having that type of perspective can
Mhm.
really open up the heart and mind to all that God has, and to not feel limited, but to be able to feel the abundance of his joy through pets throughout our life.
I agree because we can't deny that our animals have personalities. They have personalities. They love
Yeah.
us. They show us affection. I mean, no one in my life has ever been as excited to see me as my pet is when I come through the door. So how
Right?
precious is that?
Yeah.
And in what ways are your clients expressing what a blessing their pet was to them or is to them?
Mhm. They do often. I think that's one of the biggest hurts is trying to understand why something so beautiful was given to them and then taken away in their viewpoint. And the blessings that they have with their animals reach something that they've never experienced sometimes with humans. And so there can be a lot of confusion as, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was going to grieve this hard, or I've never experienced this type of grief before. And I simply just walk alongside them and let them know that that relationship was very meaningful and significant. And all of the blessings that they experienced, their love story never dies. It's how we hold it in our heart and in our mind. If we want to label it as painful and keep that label forever,
Mhm.
it doesn't it doesn't serve us well. But if we want to label it painful for a while and be flexible, to God's grace and mercy and, all of the restoration that he has for us, then
Mhm.
then they can stay in that mode of looking at the blessings and being excited to see them in heaven again.
Yeah.
For those that are faith-based.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll be getting to that. We'll tackle that elephant in the room as to whether or not
Yes.
our pets go to heaven. We'll do that in just a minute. When you said, how can something so beautiful be given to us and then taken away in such a short amount of time? I remember when my husband passed, people send flowers and they're
Mhm.
gorgeous and then they die too. And so that was
Yeah.
hard for me just to watch something so beautiful die, and it kept reverberating my
Yeah.
husband's life to me. But it also reminded me that God always delivers in excellence. Those flowers were temporary, but they were gorgeous and they fulfilled their purpose, and then they passed. And that was the same with my husband. And
Right.
so I think that the excellence of God always delivers in
Mhm.
this fullness,
Yeah.
and once it's served its purpose, because everything, God holds everything in the palm of his hand and he calls it home after it's
Right.
fulfilled its purpose. And so I think about that like a pet. He was here, she was here,
Mhm.
did their job. And I wonder too, let me ask you about this. This is
Mhm.
just me off in left field thinking about this.
Mhm.
And this is probably going to be looked at a little weird in the Christian community because I get it and I get it. But do you think by chance that animals come into our life, into our family, to take diseases that we should have gotten and they pass from cancers and things like that?
Wow, I'm so glad you brought this question up because I've heard that before. And the reason why I'm kind of pausing is because I haven't really thought about it for quite some time. But yes, I believe so, a little bit.
I know. I was like, I'm a little
You
bit.
know,
Yeah.
really, because I've actually heard testimonies and heard firsthand and not looking for the testimony, if you know what I mean. Like I wasn't
Right.
out searching. It was somebody that was doing my hair. She mentioned, I won't go into the story, but anyways, I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, and with all the cancers that are coming up in our animals, it's just incredible. So
A thought. It was
it
just a
is.
thought on
It
because I
is.
had seen this pattern in families and friends for a while. I mean, I haven't paid any attention to it, well, especially since my husband passed, but where the animal was passing from something that a human
Yeah.
could have gotten and passed from. So
Hmm.
anyway, it just
Yeah.
crossed my mind. I don't know if that
Yeah.
was a divine revelation or just me trying to put things together to make sense. I don't know.
No, I think it was divine because I think there's really something to that. And it would be interesting to actually do some investigative work and just
Yeah.
see, kind of what testimonies are out there about it for sure, because God is amazing and we definitely don't have it all figured out, but it's kind of fun to connect some dots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It is
Yeah.
it is fun to explore God, his
It is.
nature, his character within the world that he's given us. And
Yeah.
so that might be
Yeah.
worthy of
Love it.
attention. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes.
Why do you think that, and that I can relate to this. Why do you think animal lovers can be so at ease or have a better bond with their pets than their family or friends?
Oh, yes, because they're uncomplicated. Humans, we're complicated, man. We can complicate anything if we really put our minds to it. But our sweet ones, they just show up. They live in the moment. They are the true definition of the moment, and so I think that unconditional love and how they just model the joy of the little things. And I think a lot of times we secretly wish that we could have that and do that ourselves, and not have the whole weight of the world on our shoulders and things like that. So I think that, boy, they're amazing, aren't they?
They
I
are.
mean,
Yeah.
they're just incredible.
How do you process grief for a pet? Does it have a lot of similarities as with grieving a human loss? Are there differences?
Mhm. There are a lot of similarities. Most definitely, when they talk about the 5 stages of grief, and you can do a lot of reading and research, right, on the different parts of grief, and sometimes I think in human grief, and most definitely in pet loss, you can have all 5 of those stages in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just it's incredible how our mind and our heart really are try to connect and understand what just happened. So I find that with pet loss, one of the differences is that there can be anger, shame, confusion around why they're grieving so deeply. There can be anger, shame, and resentment about why society doesn't, understand what's going on or is accepting of it. Or people might say some hurtful things that didn't intend to. It wasn't their intention. They
It's
just
just a dog, right?
figure, why
Yeah.
don't you get another one? Because it's not like your mom died, or,
Right. Yeah.
it
Okay. Yeah.
happens, and so those are some things, because I believe that sometimes society, we like to rank death. One
Mhm.
is more important than the other, or even loss.
Mhm.
Somebody who loses a job, it could feel like, one of the deepest relationships that they had,
Yeah.
so there's all different types of loss. And with pet loss, I really think that that's a little bit of the different part, is having those deep feelings of kind of confusion too.
I can understand that the confusion onto whether or not. Well, do what are some of the things that a pet owner needs to give themselves permission for? Because when you say that, it makes me think, do
Mhm.
they need to give themselves permission to grieve?
Yes. Yeah. And to grieve in their own unique way, and that it's not cookie cutter, or that they pass 1 step to 2 steps to 3 steps, that it's a journey. And just as human grief, there will be this huge wave that comes on, and then there will be a reprieve, and then there will be another huge wave that will hit you out of nowhere, and
Mhm.
then you think you got your footing, and then here it comes again. But the beautiful thing that I like to express and to walk with my clients in, is that your heart and your head start to understand, okay, I'm getting through this, I'm going to survive that big grief wave, and then it becomes easier down the road, and definitely that it will sting a little bit less. And as you know, we never get over, but we get through. And that's the
Mhm.
beauty of God walking us through, most definitely.
I say it's a roller coaster ride at best, and it sounds like that's the same
Yeah,
for pet loss too.
it really is. It is.
Mhm. Is there a scripture that somebody can hang on to, a pet owner can hang on to comfort them with the loss of their pet?
One is John 9:3. This happened, and so that the power of God could be seen in him. Jesus gives us insight when we ask why. And I take this one is from hearing Jesus speak into your sorrow. by Nancy Guthrie. I don't know if you've seen
Okay.
the book.
I have seen that book. Somebody gave me that book when my husband passed.
Okay, yeah. And it's chapter 6. I have purpose in your pain. That's one that I really like to share that with clients that are faith-based. And then the other one is I wrote it in my book under the final Matthew 11:28 through 30, and then also Philippians 4:8 through 9. So those ones, with Matthew 11:28, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill feeling on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And that particular one is just a beautiful reminder that we can take deep breath in our grief and know that it's not permanent. Even though it feels permanent, it's not. And then the other one that I really like to express is Philippians 4:8-9. And these are from the Message, these two particular ones. Summing it up, friends, I'd say you all do best filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Put into practice what you learned from me and what you've heard and saw and realized. Do that, and God, who makes everything work together, will work you into his most excellent harmonies. So that one I really love too, because it's not about positive thinking. It is about allowing ourselves to feel the emotions, to talk about them, to have support, all of it, and to look at the blessings and the good things as well, and to have a good balance in that. So I
It
love that
does.
one too.
It does remind me when hearing you say these verses, it does remind me that we can give God our pain. We can cry out to him. We can look to him to help us carry that weight of grief. And
Yeah.
he does reveal himself in it. If we cry out to him and we consult him about our pain and what we're feeling and the questions we have, trying to make sense of it, God reveals himself. He shows up in a capacity that fits our context.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing. Anytime we can engage the heart of God about our pain, about burdens,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
willing to carry them for us.
Yeah, and I share with people all the time too. You can yell at him. You can get pissed off at him. He can handle it, I mean,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what goes on in our grief sometimes, and that's okay
Yeah.
because it's not permanent. We aren't angry with him all the time, but we're allowed to say, "Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't what I thought it was going to be."
That whole question, like, why give something so beautiful and why
Yes.
take it away? Like,
Hmm.
what's the point in that? But
Hmm.
it does create an opportunity for us to discover who God is versus who we want him to be or who we think he should be. And we're
Yeah.
faced with the reality of who he really is, which I found to be far more beautiful than the box I had put him in.
Yes, amen, right?
Yeah.
I agree. Same with me. Absolutely.
So
Yes.
just a minute ago, you were talking, kind of touching on this a little bit, but is there a right way or a wrong way to grieve, as in the amount of time that you grieve, or cleaning out their little toy
Mhm,
box, their
mhm,
cabinet, their food, toys,
mhm,
beds?
mhm.
What's acceptable? What's not acceptable?
I would say my answer to this one is it's all on personal preference as long as it's healthy, and that's the big disclaimer there. I really encourage clients to take their time, especially when it comes to giving away or throwing things out. I've I've had the unfortunate encounters with clients who got rid of things because of just a panic. It was too painful, and the huge regret that they felt because they got rid of it too soon. So one of my suggestions always is, even if you aren't 100% sure, then just if you can yourself or somebody put some things into a closet or somewhere where they're safe. You can even make a special box, however you want to do it. But
Mhm.
just to know that it's there, and then whenever you want to pay it forward, or you welcome a new sweet one into your life, or you want to throw it away, you can. But at least you're giving your brain and your heart some space to make that decision. And when it comes to the amount of time grieving, it really varies depending on each person's depth of the relationship, and then also the healthy coping skills, and if they're healthy in the practice of reaching out for support, whether it be community, or if they've kind of set up some friends and family that they can really be transparent with. Because my biggest thing, and as you know, it's all about honoring the feelings, acknowledging, honoring, and then coming to the point of releasing is the best thing. So yeah. Yeah, it varies for everybody, but my biggest thing that I speak with clients on is healthy ways, for sure.
For me, speaking from the loss of my husband, I didn't get rid of anything of his until 3 years. At
Mhm.
3 years, I just boxed up a few things.
Uh-huh.
At 5 years, I gave his brother some of his clothes, and I have a little bit of his stuff still
Mhm.
hanging in the closet. But I did know at that
Mhm.
point when I was ready to start letting some of these things go. So I knew that it was right
Mhm.
at that time for me, even though I'm sure people would say 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, that's a little crazy, but that's just my journey. And I'm not going to
Right.
apologize for it.
Exactly. And that's the beauty. I believe that God created us as it isn't cookie cutter, and I believe that your testimony in that will give somebody else permission,
Yeah.
to say, what, I'm not going to judge myself on this, and I don't care if other people, because it's none of their business. It's
Yeah.
between me and God and my house and my family,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I love that you speak boldly into that, because it really is. It's our business, right? There's
Yeah.
God's business, there's our business, and then there's other people's business. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
There was a point that I had a conversation with the Lord, and I checked in with him a couple of times on it and
Hmm.
just asked him, am I afraid, or do I just genuinely need more time? Am I enabling and I don't want to
Hmm.
face it? Am I avoiding something I need to face, or do I genuinely need more time? And so
Hmm.
I checked in with him over the years like that.
Yeah.
And then that's when I would hit those markers like, okay, I can box up some of his things. Okay,
Right.
I can send these things to his brother.
Mm.
And it's just a
It
process.
is.
What are some of the things, the way of thinking that pet owners question their grief? Is this, like you were talking about, healthy? Is this healthy? Is this not healthy? Where's the
Mhm.
balance at? How can I find the balance?
Right. Yes. It is a thing. That's for sure. Right. It's so it comes on so strong.
They feel like
And
they're crazy. Like, oh, this is, am I
mhm.
being crazy?
Yes. Yeah. Why can't I sleep? I can't eat, or I'm overeating, or I have brain fog, fatigue, crying constantly. I know people that will still shed a tear a year later every day, and it's not that they're working with me for a full year. It's that we stay in touch, or they'll reach out, or so it's just part of the process, and the healthy part of the mindset is just allowing and trying not to judge it too much. I think when we judge it, that's where the pain comes. And I think the resisting, that's where the pain comes. But if we can keep an open mind and heart and say, I've never experienced this, so I need to give myself a break and know what my my deal breakers are. If I'm running to alcohol, or I don't drink personally, but I'm just saying, running to alcohol or running to, workaholism or any of the things as a distraction. Some distractions are healthy, right? But not the ones that are, strongholds in our lives for
Yeah.
sure.
So that makes me think of self-care. What are some of the ways
Mhm,
that people,
mhm,
moms, dad, pet owners
mhm,
can make sure they're taking care of themselves?
mhm. I would say the self-care to me is really about the mental capacity and the support system. I think that when we're surrounded by, even if it's one person or more, if we have people in our lives that we can be real, authentic, transparent, and have that safe place to really talk about what's going on, that is the best self-care that we can do. There's definitely, things that I recommend to clients that are in the midst of, a fresh grief. A weighted blanket is really helpful. There's different teas and, just things that help when it comes to kind of the self-care, more of the physical body. But definitely the emotional part, I think, and the mindset is really about having support to know that you can have those meltdowns. And then one other is, in fact, creating a safe place to have meltdowns. I did that in my closet. I I created a place when I was grieving Winston that I could go in there and have my meltdowns. And it just felt right to me. And just giving permission and having those things really helps. And then one other one is also having one liners. I'm a big fan of these, and I help clients in their own words figure a one liner to have in different situations, because when we're grieving, as you know, our brain capacity is not there. And when somebody all of a sudden asks us or is texting us, "How are you doing?" or "Can I come over? What do you need?" Having these one liners are brilliant. They just, your mind doesn't have to think about them. You've already thought about it. You have it. You can end the conversation beautifully with grace and take care of yourself at the same time. So those are the types of self-care that I like to really dive into with.
What would a one-liner be? Is it if someone says, "What can I do for you?" that you would actually have a one-liner?
Well, let's just say that the pain is really fresh, like the death just happened. So we'll use that for an example, just time-wise. Um, a, a one-liner could be something like, "Thank you so much for reaching out to connect. And I really appreciate your heart to want to help me through this," or whatever their words, right?
Mhm.
Um, right now, the best thing that I'm doing for myself is just taking some quiet time. But I want you to know how much I care and appreciate you. And I will definitely reach out to you when I'm ready, probably in the next week or two.
Okay.
How does that sound to you? And that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
something like that. It can be much shorter. I'm just doing it on the fly, but you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just something really graceful,
Okay. Yeah.
thoughtful, and also giving a clear expectation of where you are and where they can communicate again with you. So it's not
Okay.
just like, oh, because then if we leave the person thinking, should I text them again? Because we do want relationship. We just can't
Right.
talk to everybody right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is hard to know what to say, and especially maybe with pet grief
Mhm.
because you're not quite sure
Yeah.
how what some people's degree of the value of a pet is different, and that makes it even more
Yes.
complicated. People don't even know what to say when a
Right.
human being passes away.
Yes.
So then they're added complication with a pet.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like
Yeah.
the idea of creating time to engage that grief and process it, whether it is just crying to your
Mhm.
deepest part of your soul or whether
Yeah.
it's having conversation with God or what that looks like
Mhm.
in that private space that you've created. Would you call it the meltdown space or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. Create a space for meltdowns, and it's significant place. It could be a car,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever the dynamics of
Yeah.
life happens, but yeah, definitely creating a go-to space.
When I hear you say about creating this meltdown space,
Hmm.
it's like you can engage in your day and you can stay busy and
Yes.
then you go home and or whatever time you allow, in the
Yeah.
back of your mind or maybe your heart that I'm going to have time to lose it and
Yeah.
to, go let
Yeah.
that, what is it, that overwhelm out of your heart.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's important. I think that's huge for processing grief.
It really is. Knowing ahead of time that we have a place, an outlet, the reprieve is coming, because I
Hmm.
think that's where the chaos can happen in our head and our hearts, right?
Yeah.
Is when, where, how, I don't know, I'm just going to explode right here.
Yeah.
When we can say, I know exactly, just like you said, I know exactly when I can, and I'm going to push through for now
Yeah.
gently, and then I know I can go and release.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine. I would think that's helpful to some people. I know one of your goals that you work with is you move your clients, your pet grievers,
Mhm.
from despair to peace. Is it simply a matter of walking out the grief journey where time dulls the immediate impact and you can have more good days than bad? How does one move from
Mhm.
despair to
Mhm.
peace?
It's a great question. So I really believe that it is having that support, whether it be me as a grief coach, or it be a therapist, it be, close friends, community support groups, any type of support to be able to process and to go through the emotions and to let our hair down. That is the beautiful place where, doing the work, right? It's really doing the work, because we can, when it comes to the time, a time I don't think really heals. I think it can lessen the pain, right? But I think it's really doing the hard work like you had to do, that so many of us have had to do, where we say, all right, I can't get out of this, so I'm going to go through it and see to the other side. And so definitely it's walking in it, and that's where the peace comes in, because the avoidance, that there's no peace there. It's continued devastation, and it's continued wounding,
Mm.
for sure.
If you don't address trauma, it stays there until you do. And when you
Right.
finally do address it, it's as if it just happened all
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
processing and taking
Yes.
the time.
Absolutely.
I think it dismantles the degree because your life will never be the
Mhm.
same. It just
Right.
won't. That
Right.
pet, that person
Mhm.
impacted your life. I was with my husband a little over 33 years. He
Yeah.
impacted my life. My pets have impacted my life. And
Yeah.
it won't when they're gone, it you are missing that
Mhm.
portion of what they brought to your life. And
Yeah.
so it can't ever be the same. And you have to be willing to take a look at that. You're talking about the different types of support systems, but
Mhm.
can someone find a local pet loss grief coach? Is that a common
Mhm.
thing? Because when I found you, I was like, wow, I didn't even know that existed.
Right? I know. Yes. I think it's becoming a little bit more common. Definitely there's a lot of online support groups, so people can hop on Zoom. There's plenty out there for that. When it comes to local ones, there are some cities that offer, and I believe it's really picking up in terms of
Okay.
more places are understanding the value, and that there's definitely a need for it, and that people are wanting, especially since COVID is done.
Yeah.
Praise
Yeah.
God, right?
Right.
That, we want human connection rather than Zoom all the time.
That's
So
true.
yeah, I believe that there's a lot more coming about when it comes to support groups. And then coaches like me, yep, I think that there are more coming out there. So that's a good thing for sure.
But
Yeah.
people could reach out to you because you do online
Yeah.
help. I mean,
Mhm.
you're able to coach and
Yeah.
from Zoom or whatever that might
Yep.
be
Yep.
if you're the only one locally they can find.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I work with clients actually all over the world, which is nice. And through Zoom or phone call, just whatever they prefer. Because sometimes they are crying and they don't want to be on camera, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
totally get that. So I leave that up to them, their choice. Yeah.
Do you facilitate grief groups?
I used to. I used to do a lot of them, and I might be doing them again. I've been thinking about it, and a lot of clients have been asking for it. So, and it is fun for me. When I say fun, meaning like it's just it feels natural, and I love doing it. Really
Mhm.
supporting a group in that way and giving them space to feel understood, and not just a number in a group, but really take a deep dive with them. So yeah, I might be doing that again.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the most debated aspect of pet death when it comes to faith based, and that
Yeah.
is whether or not they go to heaven. And I have my way of thinking about it because
Hmm.
there are countless examples of God's heart for animals. The fact
Yeah.
that there are animals in heaven, our God is the God of relationship. So it would be in line with his nature to extend our pet relationships into the new heavens or the new earth. But I
Yeah.
will, however, admit that I have not found a scripture that specifically says our pets go to heaven. But at the same time, I have
Hmm.
not found a scripture that specifically says they do not go to heaven. Do
That's right.
you think that pets going to heaven aligns with God's word, his nature, his character?
Yes. Amen to all of that. I do. You said it so beautifully.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel about it. It's God's character, and my goodness. And I'm not the best at quoting scriptures, but there are many scriptures out there, and that talk about his love and his character, and how he created the animals. Yes, we're more significant to him, right? But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he loves them, he created them, and we're called to take care of them. I love Randy Alcorn's book, Heaven,
Yeah.
and he has a whole chapter in there about animals being in heaven, our pets being in heaven. So yeah, I think it's funny because just like you said, in the Christian community, there's two different camps. Some say absolutely not, and some say yes. So we'll find out.
That we will. That we will. This I think falls
Yeah.
under the category of just exploring God, exploring his heart,
Yeah.
exploring his nature, exploring
Yeah.
his character, and seeing how these things line up. I
Yeah.
just feel like that aligns with God's desire. Because I think about all the
Mhm.
scriptures where he even valued the animals, the work animals, how we were told to take care of our
Mhm.
like cattle and things like that. How two sparrows are worth a penny, but yet not one falls to the ground that he doesn't know about. And
Right.
what else? The care, how we're responsible for our animals. We're
Yeah.
to care. And now, granted, he did give us animals as food, our
Mhm.
cattle and the ones in the
Mhm.
field. He did give those to us as food. But I'd even like to think there's enough room in heaven that even if they fulfilled their purpose of being food,
Yeah.
that they are
Yeah.
then brought into the new heavens, the new earth, whichever,
Yeah.
all of it.
I think it's about the thoughts. Are they helpful or are they harmful? And for me, I love God, and the relationship that I have with him, and being in his word and seeing his character. It's helpful for me to think he wouldn't just give them to us and then never see them again. I mean, that's his love through that little body. There's
Yeah.
no way,
Yeah.
that's helpful. And for me personally, it would be really harmful for me
Yeah.
to think that that was it, have me question God in all different ways that
Mhm.
just aren't, that I think that's the enemy's way of just taking us on a road that's not
Yeah.
worthy, you know?
I know I had a pastor. I still love him. Love him then, love him to death. They're a great family. And he said one time from the pulpit, he said, I don't care what y'all think. Your pets aren't going to heaven. And I thought, I will leave this church right now if he daggone says that one more time. But from his perspective, it was that soul and the
Right.
spirit. An animal
Mm-hmm.
has a soul, but it doesn't have a
Yeah.
spirit kind of thing. That was where he was coming at it from, like there. But again,
Right.
that's his take on the soul and the spirit, but
Yeah.
God can do whatever he wants to do with whatever he wants to do. All of it is in the palm of his
Yeah.
hand. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just think there's more proof
Mm-hmm.
in the direction
Yes.
that all animals go to heaven versus they don't go to heaven. So, and then I
You're
think
right.
one of his other things was all we hear about is horses.
Yeah.
And then Randy Alcorn, I read a little snippet of
Hmm.
him
Hmm.
about saying, well, what did you want the King of Kings to come riding in on, a hamster? Or something like that.
I know, right?
So he was saying that's why they make reference to horses. That's what
Right.
knights and battlemen come in on, not
That's
hamsters or something like
right.
that.
That's right. It's true. God's the best storyteller. He's so right. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, God is so faithful. And, you know, having our sweet ones in heaven and taking care of them for us, that's his heart. That's his character, you know?
it is. I agree. A few minutes ago, we were talking about healthy and unhealthy. And is there such a
Hmm.
thing as an unhealthy attachment to a pet? And if so,
Hmm.
what would
Hmm.
that look like, and what kind of help is needed to get things back in balance? Do
Hmm.
you see an unhealthy connection, an unhealthy level of grief, where they need to bring things back into balance?
Yes, I do a little bit of hesitation here because part of the role that I play is being very non-judgmental. So I will equip clients, even if I have kind of a sense that maybe it can be towards an unhealthy type of dependency on the animal. I will just continue to share love and light and resources and suggestions to keep them on a healthy trajectory and also a healthy mindset. So sometimes, to answer your question a little bit deeper, sometimes if a client is expressing, you know, a deep dependence and that's the only thing that they're thinking about, helping them see big picture and helping them see, yes, the value, but also the value that they have and the value that God has for them and that their life is still to be lived, and it's not one or the other. It's not an or, it's an and. I help them do that. It's, yes, you're experiencing this devastating loss, and God has a plan for you still, and you have life to live. And let's look at that. And you can do both. You can grieve and make a good life for yourself. And just to touch on that, I really feel that God is stirring up in my work with pet loss. I think that this pet loss stuff is a sign from him saying, "Hey, let's take care of some things in your life." You know, it exposes any type of loss. As you know, it exposes our heart condition and where our priorities are and all of those things. So I think it's God's one of God's ways of, you know, saying, okay, well, that purpose is fulfilled, and now let's work on your purpose and paying it forward. You know, it's the lessons we learn from our sweet ones that we can pay forward as well. So yeah. Yeah.
And that makes me think of, if there's a, well, I don't know that an unhealthy balance would be the only qualifier for this, but
Hmm.
death changes you. It changes your family dynamic and your daily
Yeah.
patterns. And so, are there any identity issues for pet owners that pet loss
Mhm.
creates?
Yes, yes. And this in my book, I share one-liners on this particular one too, because I put an example in the book of I was at the vet's office with our other dog Spencer, and I heard some of the people say, "Oh yeah, there's Winston's mom," you know, and or you could be, you know, in the line at the coffee shop. "Oh, you know, there's so and so's mom," and it's like your identity, you know, especially if you have your sweet one with you everywhere you go. And as you know, your husband and any human loss, there's that identity that can be there. So it really, my goodness, it can be tough, right? Because that's where our identity was, and it could be identity and I was the best mom or I was a horrible mom or, you know, whatever it could be. It's really taking a look at that and saying, well, you're a lot more than that, and let's not dishonor it. How can we carry that through to this new season that God has you in? How can you keep some of those character traits of that identity? Hold the ones that feel good to you. Let's release the ones that don't serve you anymore. And then let's move forward and honor your sweet one. Yeah.
And that, I think, would tie into any sort of regret, shame, guilt.
Mhm.
Do you see that surface with pet
Yeah.
owners as well?
Big time.
What
Big
does
time.
that look like? Regret?
Yeah. There's a lot that can happen when it comes to the second guessing, especially when it comes to us having the power and gift, and I say gift, for us to have our sweet one go through a peaceful passing through euthanasia if the vet feels that that's the best call. Of course, it's our choice as pet parents, but because we have that dynamic and that power, there's a lot of second guessing that can happen. Did
I
I do
just
it too soon? Did I not do it? Should I have done it like 2 weeks ago? And
right.
oh my goodness. I mean, so many different things of second guessing and regrets. And, I'm sure it's exactly like human when it comes to, oh my gosh, what if I was in the car long enough? Or, just all of these
Mhm.
things that go through our head. So definitely there's can be guilt and shame there. And so it's really taking a look at the thoughts and examining the thoughts and saying, is
Right.
this true? Is it helpful? Is it harmful? Do we have facts on this? Because otherwise, as you know, we can spin, right? We're
Yes.
humans. That's what we
Yes.
do.
Yeah. I agree because I second guess my decision to euthanize little Zeke, the one that I
Mhm.
still grieve
Yeah,
about. So that's a tough struggle too. But
it is, right? It is.
so let's talk about leaving that legacy or memorial. What do you mean
Mhm,
by that? How can
mhm,
people do traditions or
mhm.
remembrance?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful because there are several ways that people come up with really clever things, that are meaningful to them, whether it be some type of tribute in the house or in the garden, or it be, friends and family coming over for a memorial service. It could be very private. It's just really what comes to your heart and what feels authentic. I think one of the things that society does too is kind of the judgments. It should be this way, or you loved your pet or your human so much if you do it this way, but if you don't do it this way, then you didn't love them as much. I mean,
Mm,
really?
yeah.
So the legacy part is big. I think it's about paying it forward. I help clients sometimes. I'll give an example. This is a kind of a different one, but and I know that they're okay with me sharing this because we've had conversations about it. But I've worked with a family before where they had to make that hard decision for their sweet one to be euthanized because of biting. And
Mm,
they tried everything. And I won't go into all the specifics, but they were at their last anyways. So they made that hard decision, and the mom was really upset because they got this little dog from a breeder and found out that it wasn't the best bred and some other things. And we looked at the anger and we brainstormed, okay, well, how can you make this into a win? Let's not diminish it. Let's not deflect it. Let's not do any of that. Let's honor this sweet little guy who had to be put down because he was, you know, biting everybody and hurting everybody. And so she wanted to create a blog and do it in his legacy and help other potential pet parents know how to avoid certain signs on certain situations of picking out a dog,
mm.
and so it's just those types of things where, that little guy, that's up in heaven has his legacy down here because his pet owner took that energy and moved it into that direction. So there's definitely lots of different things that pet parents can kind of get clever on, right? And
Yeah.
say, hey, I bet there's some work that could be done here, paying it forward.
It's another example of nothing is wasted. She can
That's
take that
right.
and then help another person. I think that's
Absolutely.
one of the reasons pain can be repurposed when there's redemption for our pain. You can
Yeah.
help somebody else out through this. They're going to go through the same thing or they're experiencing the same thing. I
Mm-hmm.
even love that at the last chapter of your book, you address help for vets and
Mm-hmm.
the veterinarians and the
Yes.
support teams, also active military and
Yeah.
veterans who had
Yeah.
their canine die, whatever, law enforcement, support
Yeah.
animals, a tragic death. You were talking about euthanization
Mhm.
because of behavioral issues. What else have you got? The people who do not have children, people who have
Yep.
children and are mourning too. So you've covered,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think, every aspect of pet grief. That's phenomenal.
Oh, thank
It's a
you. I'm gonna
great resource.
cry.
Oh, I was gonna say it's a
Well,
great resource.
I've got God bumps. That's just God working in my heart. I've been fortunate to work with well over 2,000 families, and
Wow.
I just, it's an honor. And I know that there are so many people that feel unheard and unseen and unappreciated
Right.
in their grief. And so it was an opportunity for me to play a small part and say, listen, you are known and loved and adored just
Mhm.
like everybody else. And I want other people to recognize and have a place in their heart too. Maybe,
Yeah.
planting the seed, right? That
Yeah.
somebody might read that in my book. And the next time that they see somebody that comes along their path by God's divine, they
Yeah.
can have a little more compassion and empathy for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you touched on it as we've been talking, but can we maybe succinct some ways that people can help their grieving friends through pet loss?
I would say the best way is to really be present and not shy away. I know we can have a tendency to think, "Oh, I don't want to disturb them." Oh, we can get in our head, or I'll speak for in the I statement. I can get in my head. The truth is, from most pet parents, that they actually feel really hurt and abandoned when they think that their friends and family were going to be there and then they weren't, because some people just don't have the capacity to know how to be there for somebody. So, with that being said, know that reaching out and just saying, you don't have to talk. I just want you to know that I'm here for you. I want you to know you can have my phone number 24/7, and that if you call in the middle of the night, if I'm sleeping, I will still get to you. I'm going to call you back and I can just listen. I'm not
Yeah.
here to judge you. I'm here for you. I think that's one of the best ways that we can help people
Yeah.
as friends. Yeah. Yeah, just saying I'm here for you and I'm not going to try and make it better. I'm just here for you,
Yeah.
you
Because you
know.
really, unless you can bring that pet back, you can't
Right?
make it better.
It's
But your
so
presence
true.
is everything.
Yeah. It is. It really is. It is. And then there's other things too. One is, if the person isn't really, really responsive, one way to engage is just say, okay, I know you want to be left alone right now. I did have a thought. I can bring you a cup of coffee. I can send a meal over, or we can take a rain check, and which would you prefer?
Hmm.
And a lot of times they'll say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll take a cup of coffee or send
Yeah.
me a meal." It's amazing, if we give
Hmm.
kind of options, people will be like, "Oh, that would really," because our brain, as you
Right.
know, cannot think. We don't even know what we need just to breathe. We're lucky that our body does that naturally.
I think
And we're
I've even
breathing.
I think I've even gotten to the point where I'll say, I'm sending a meal over on Wednesday or Thursday, which day and what time is better for you? Because
Yes.
if you can get really specific and they don't have to think about
Yeah.
what, when do I want that? And also too, the other thing is I do for people
Mhm.
is send them an emoji. I'm not asking them, how are you? I'm not asking them to have a
Yeah.
conversation. I'm sending you a blue heart, a red heart, a pink heart, just to say,
Mhm.
I remember you. I'm thinking of you. And so
Yeah.
there's no engagement needed yet.
Mhm.
You stuck your head in the cyber door, if you will.
Yes, I love
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
those are some simple, effective ways that are actually helpful, because you
They
don't know what to do.
Right, right. We can feel helpless as friends, can't we?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard. Yeah.
Well, down to the last two questions. The
Okay.
first one is there anything that I have not asked you about? Your book it covers the full gamut, in my opinion. And
Mhm.
we did not get to the full gamut of what you go through. So, or what you cover. Is
Mhm.
there anything that I have not asked you about that you're like, I must share this before we part?
No, I love all of your questions.
Okay, well, good.
Absolutely
Well,
love them. Yeah.
and we're going to put the link for your book and your website and all that good stuff in the show
Mhm.
notes where they can
Yeah.
find that resource. Also, it's on Amazon.
Yes. Mhm.
Yep,
Mhm.
Amazon. And again, the name of the book was, or is, not was, the name of the book is Pet Loss and Divine Healing, a compassionate guide for navigating your devastating loss by Rachel Shirley. So if you
Yeah.
want to look that up immediately after we finish this podcast, go check it out. Otherwise, links are in the show notes. And then my final question to you is,
Mhm.
if our listeners today remember one thing
Mhm.
about pet loss, what is that one thing that you want them to remember?
That God is faithful. We have a good, good Father,
Mm.
and that you can lean on him because he is faithful and he restores everything. He'll restore your heart. I know that's a lot more than one, but it's kind
No.
of all the same, right?
Yeah, it's all the same. You covered it all the same. Your pain is safe with him,
Yes,
no
yeah.
matter how it comes out or manifests, whether it's like you were saying, rage or
Mhm. Yeah.
anger or,
Mhm.
whatever that is, he can take it and he is faithful to not reject, not turn away, not
Yeah.
shame. He understands pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And his word talks about he wants us to be able to grieve. He wasn't saying throw it under the rug, but he
Yeah.
did say take up your mat when there's too much of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Well, Rachel, this has been a wonderful conversation. I hope that
Yeah.
it's going to be some salve to some hurting hearts, and which I feel sure that it will be. And if they get a hold of your book, that's going to be just an amazing resource. And then reach out to you as well. We'll put your contact info for that in as well.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I hope we can do this again, and we're definitely going to stay connected.
All right. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for your time and for sharing this experience with my guest. I hope you have found encouragement for today and a deeper revelation of God's heart in the midst of pain and suffering. We'd love to have you as a subscriber to Finding God in Our Pain so that you can be connected with all my guests as they share their personal experiences and professional knowledge about pain and suffering. And because this podcast is a division of the website A Life of Thrive, for more information and the various ways you can connect with us, please visit the website alifeofthrive.com. I look forward to sharing more transparent stories from the hearts of women who intimately know what it means to have their world flipped upside down, their authentic struggle to make sense of it, and what recovery and healing looks like. Till then, sweet woman, remember you are not alone and that God speaks the most beautiful things in the dark.